Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of FSidfs DFS Fantasy NASCAR Picks. I'm your host, Mega31. Sorry we couldn't get out any Xfinity or truck videos. Just the window was so tight between practice qualifying and the actual race, and overlapped with MLB and football on Thursday night and so many other things. So even if I did a speculation video with all the guys that ended up in the back in Xfinity race, it just really wouldn't make sense. So truck race, I don't know. I thought I had a great lineup. I didn't, cash much at all. Maybe I just like there was a bunch of duplicate lineups that were just a little bit off from mine, and they had a couple better drivers. So whatever. Xfinity, I was crushing, and then Dale Jr.'s car caught on fire. I mean, he looked good out there, and it was kind of bummed to. I would like to see how that race played out. I don't know if he'd win it, but I think he even had a respectable finish. And then Sheldon Creed taking out Austin Hill killed me also. So on to today. So it's always a race we look forward to, the Bristol night race. Unfortunately, it might be shortened during rain, so they did move lockups. So if you set your lineups earlier in the week, just be aware that it's like 6:45 start instead of 7:45 start or whatever. So just be conscious of that. So I think we got to look at it two ways here, where if it's going to be rain shortened, I think we need to kind of look at it one way. And then if it's going to play out like normal and be okay, then like some other strategies come into play here. We didn't see much passing at this track. I mean, it's really hard to get by the leader, and it looked like tire wear really didn't have a lot of effect. Like some of the guys that stayed out there were fine. I look at like Daniel Hemrick, who led a bunch of laps, and it was like guys with fresher tires, it took a while to get by them. I mean, Allgaier later in the race, who had like much fresher tires, and everybody was able to cut through the field and eventually get the win. But and there was like a lot of green flag runs, like the truck race for the first time ever. The whole stage one, there was not a caution, and in it. So we did see some long runs. We did see our share of cautions and wrecks, but not as much. So again, I don't think that when we look at it, and especially with the weather, we might not want to consider like looking for a ton of place differential or looking for a ton of people in the back, because they can get lapped very fast here, and it's hard to get those laps back. And if it goes long runs, they're just going to continue to lose laps. And if it's a short race, it's going to be hard for them to get back there. So Christopher Bell starts on the pole, third straight pole. Is this the week? I mean, we saw some other drivers do well in the other series that have let us down recently. So maybe this is a chance for him to redeem himself. But I don't know. But he's in the best position to go out there and to lead early. And if it's going to be rain shortened race, you might not have all the dominator points that should be available if they run every single lap in this race. So that's going to cut into that. So I think he's definitely good, but Hamlin definitely had a really fast car. He's run really well here. Also could get out in front of him potentially too. So I didn't put a prime play up here because I wanted to try to give you some values to finish off your lineup, and then you can decide what you want to do up here. I didn't want to kind of box you in by telling you like this driver up top is going to be a prime play that you need to start your lineup with. So I think Bell's in play. I think Hamlin's in play. I think if you can get both of them in some cases, they might be in play also. But then you have William Byron lurking here in third, who's also going to have high ownership. And on FanDuel, like probably put the three of these in and then see. I don't know how it's going to work salary wise. If you can find two other guys that make sense in it, then like that might be where you want to start your FanDuel lineup. So these three might be prime in FanDuel because they've got the best chance for like really good finishing position, and laps led and stuff do factor in that, but it's more finishing position that you want to look at over place differential laps led. It's kind of surreal sometimes where a driver that leads 100 laps and starts first, and then has a little bit of an issue and finishes 10th, could score less points on FanDuel than a driver that starts like 5th and finishes first. It's just a crazy scoring system without like leading many laps at all. But that's a time for another video another day. So anyways, I think all three of these are in play. I think if you're playing like multiple lines in like a 20 max and just kind of rotate between the combinations of these and the rest of your lineup with the prime plays. And the most difficult thing is that Kyle Larson is probably going to be one of the highest owned drivers in cash, and rightfully so, because he's starting dead last. And even though I said, he might end up multiple laps down, and it's something where he's back with bad drivers and chaos could happen. He could take it out early. It's still a really good position. It's Kyle Larson. He screwed up his qualifying lap. Like, it wasn't like he was like really slow or had like a really bad issue that's not going to be able to be that the car's not sound mechanically for this. Like, Kyle Larson will be fine. Kyle Larson is a smash play, but he's also the most expensive driver by far. So in order to try to get like 2 of the 3 between Bell, Hamlin, and Byron and also play Larson in your lineup is going to be very difficult. You're going to end up playing like Ty Dillon, BJ McLeod, and JJ Yaley, and Todd Gillian, and Harrison Burton, and I don't know if that lineup's going to work out for you very well. So maybe if there's like a huge chaos wreck in like the middle of the field and the back of the field's fine and they move up, and then there's another one, like anything can happen. I don't think it's ideal. So it's going to be hard. So you probably definitely want to pick which one of these drivers you want to pair with Larson. You probably, if you can get 2 of them in, that's fine. The primes I gave you are a little more high mid-range, so you might have to play some drivers that are questionable in it if you're trying to go 2 up here. But and then the other thing too is you could always, I think you probably have to have Larson in cash, but if you do fade him and then you take 2 of these and like he really doesn't get many points for, like, say he only makes it up to, say Kyle Larson makes it up to 30th in this race, like it goes just the minimum, and Larson has like some issues, gets like spun out or something back here, and just has a miserable day. So let's see here. Even if like Kyle Larson makes it to like, he's starting 38th, right? Or 36. Okay. So he's starting 36. So if you mix up to 26, that's like he's 26 DK points. I mean, that's really not great for 11K price tag. You really need Kyle Larson to maybe get up to like 16th. That would at least give you 37 points, but still, that's not great at. And do we think Kyle Larson's going to get up there and lead this race, like through pit strategies and stuff? It's possible. Like, this is a type of driver to do that. So I very well could see maybe in cash, if you do think, okay, it's going to be a short race, there's not going to be many dominator points, Kyle Larson's not going to have enough time to get up high enough to be able to pay off his price tag. I'm just going to go Hamlin Bell, or I'm going to go Bell and Byron, or whatever, those combinations. I think that works for you. McDowell and Truex are fades to GPPs here. McDowell's starting too far forward. There's so many other guys I think are going to pass him here. Again, on FanDuel, it's not a bad play because of, if he could hold his position up here in the top 10, he's fine. But in DK, I think he's going to lose place differential points. Truex has just never really been great on this track. So I just, GPP for me, I know he's kind of in desperation mode after falling to last place after like winning the regular season title, because he had such a bad week in week 1, but he's got 2 weeks to make it. think next week no, I don't. The Talladega is coming up. I don't think it's next week. Next week we have Texas, I believe, on the schedule. Yeah, so that's actually this is a cutoff race for the Cup. So okay, so this could be a little bit more desperation for some of these drivers, but for some reason I thought that we had another race. I thought Kansas started things off. I forgot Darlington did, but anyways, I think that will come into play here, but I don't think it will be necessarily a super big factor in it. I'm looking more at, like, how these drivers have performed here, and more of the narrative of the weather and what we've seen in the last two races. So Brad Keselowski, I think he's definitely looked good in practice and qualifying. I don't have practice and qualifying or practice data up here, because then it was another thing where you had Group A and Group B, and the weather changed a little bit, and the times were off and skewed, and I just didn't think it was like something good to look at to judge things, so I didn't even throw it up here. But Keselowski, I really like. I think that he's got a strong car here, and if you want him as like a second dominator, if you want to pick between Bell and Hamlin and then have Keselowski as your next guy, that saves you, like, you're saving $1,000 off of Bell if you go with him, and you're saving even more off of Hamlin. Chase Elliott, I think, will be very popular here and does run well at this track, but he is not in the, well, he's still in the playoffs for the owners title, so you can't count him out there. So I don't think they've completely mailed it in, and I don't think he's out there like doing research and development for Hendricks like some of these other cars might be doing. But I think he's definitely somebody that could be sneaky here. I think he's still cash viable, but I think he's probably more of a GPP for me. But I had to put a cash tag on him because I can see how he could fit in cash builds. Ty Gibbs is a GPP here. But he looked really good, and I like the price tag at 79. And if he can hold his own and this race is shortened, I think he's definitely one. I think Bubba, like both these guys here, the same thing. And I'm going to give Bubba the prime because you might want to consider both of these drivers. I know it's risky, like, wow, we never play this many drivers, but if you looked at how things worked out in the truck race and how things worked out in the Xfinity race, yes, there were some drivers that cut up through the field that were really good drivers that started in the back, but pretty much where they qualified is kind of where they ran. And I think both these cars are strong enough to be able to stay at least in the top 15, so they're not going to lose that much, but their finishing place again might be score more points than if you're trying to drop down to some of these guys in the 20s. They should stay on the lead lap, so I mean that's a huge benefit there. So I'm gonna give Wallace the prime. Gibbs is a GPP, but I can, if I'm not gonna hate it if he fits in your cash line, you play it there. LaJoy, I think, starting too far forward here. I think it's not really his track style. I think he's gonna fall back. Might finish in the top 20 if he's lucky, but I think he'll be outside of that. Then we have a huge range here. So I'm going to talk about these drivers in the clump: Blaney, Reddick, Bowman, and Briscoe. I think they're all GPP plays, but I think they might turn into cash fill-in plays if you think this race is going to be shorter, because again, they should be able to stay on the lead lap. I don't think that they're going to get up there and really improve their position. But if you're going with this race is going to be a rain out and it's not going to be able to make it the full race, and that some of these drivers in the back are going to have less of a chance to get back on the lead lap and to be able to move up, then I think you have a solid group here, especially with Blaney and Reddick, who are in the playoffs and who are looking to advance to the next round. They should have decent cars. Just look and see where their playoff standings are. So they're Blaney's 6th, Reddick is 2nd. So definitely they're pretty safe here. They should run a pretty safe, conservative race and be able to have a decent finishing position. I think Briscoe's in there also. He and Bowman are a little. I think Bowman's fine. I don't think he's going to be doing like research and development. Maybe some of the resources have been stripped away from him to go to the cars that are running for the championship or the owners championship. But I think he'll be fine and do well here. And he sometimes makes it hard for him to pass, or he's hard to pass. Briscoe here also, like I always said, like he's really good at shifting and then shorter tracks and stuff that bodes well. So I think they're all in a decent play here. Kyle Busch, I think, is a GPP here. I think he'll have some ownership just because they're like high ownership people. Like, oh, it's Kyle Busch. He's got some nice place differential here, starting at 15th. He's done well here in the past. He's in 7th. He should be okay. I'm prioritizing myself other places. Is he a bad play? No. Will I have some shares of him? Probably, because I do like the place differential and how well he's done on this track. And I think, again, he fits in the sweet spot of staying on the lead lap and being able to be competitive here. Hocevar, Priest, and Dylan is another group here of value guys that you could use as cash fill-ins. They're starting in the top 20. Haley's my favorite. That's why I have him actually tagged as a cash play. I think Priest and Dylan and Hocevar are mildly risky here. I think they'll all have low ownership, but I think they're decent enough drivers and in a good enough situation that they can be able to barely stay on the lead lap unless they have some issues here, and they should be good if you need some fill-ins in a GPP. I like Haley best in cash. And again, like I'm going to kind of draw the line at like 20th here, where I think people can stay on the lead laps. I do have cash plays below that, but I think that's where I'm really looking. And Buescher is going to be my prime play here to kind of solidify that. So if you're not playing Larson, if you're playing the rain game lineup there, then Buescher is where you're going to kind of cut things off and then play from Buescher up. So Buescher and Wallace are your prime plays. You could probably get Bell and Hamlin in that lineup, or Bell, Hamlin, Byron, whatever combination you want. And then you have, like I said, a nice range of cash fill-ins to go with that. So that's where I draw the line there. Harvick, I think, will be popular in a GPP. He just looks slow in practice, and I just don't think I can play him in cash. AJ Allmendinger is close enough to the 20th line that where if some of these guys like Dylan and Priest or Hocevar have or LaJoy are guys that drop below it, I think he could move up into the top 20 and be able to stay on the lead lap. So I like him in cash there. Ross Chastain in the playoffs, he's 8th, so he's pretty safe. Like the guys that are closest to the cut line are Bell, but he's up in the first position. So if he stays up close, he should be fine. Logano and Harvick, but I think there's enough. It's going to be a decent fight. Sorry, I thought Truex was in the bottom. McDowell's actually in the bottom of the playoffs. So I really like I said, Buescher here, and for the prime play, and Ross Chastain is just, he just hasn't had the speed, but I think you can play him in cash in this because he's 8th, he's 18 points above the cut line, and I really think that, you know, Bubba's high enough up that he should hopefully pick up some points to be able to be competitive. Truex and Harvick, I think, will be in play here. Stenhouse and McDowell, I think, almost have to win the races. Looking at it again, I'm so sorry. I thought that we had one more race before the cutoff here. It just really screws me up that I wish Xfinity and like trucks and like Cup, like they all had the same cutoff race. It would be a lot easier to keep those things, track of those things. So Suarez, GPP, like he's not in the playoffs, and again, he just really hasn't had the speed. I put Ross as the cash play just because we saw the desperation. We haven't seen the speed or anything like we did last year, but hopefully he'll be able to to be there. And I said House is pretty desperate still here in the playoffs. I think he makes a good cash play also, if you think the race is going to go longer. Newman and Almirola here. Newman's not even in the DK pool, and maybe they'll add him in. I still wouldn't play him if they thought Cole Custer would be in this car. Almirola is a fade here. I just don't like him on the style tracks. Logano, I think if the race is going to go longer, you can play in cash. There's place differential upside. He is another one where they play the strategy game where they'll take 2 tires or they'll pit earlier, they'll do something to try to get track position. He is, again, he's in 11th with positive 12 points, but with Bell and Wallace starting so far forward, that might be negated just by the start of the race if they can hold their position. So he's going to have some work to do, definitely, to be able to hold his position. And especially with Bell, the guy ahead of him that's up there, like starting. So that's going to add like 27 more points to Bell because it's like 1 point per position. So looking at it that way, I think Logano's got a lot to do, but then again, we see him like on long runs just kind of fade back if he's not up in there in clean air. So would it surprise me if Logano, they figure out something and he stays out and everybody else pits and he like gets the lead and like holds it? Not at all. It's kind of like what Hemrick did, even though Hemrick was like up higher yesterday, but I can see that happening. Austin Cindric is probably where I draw the line for cash. 5,700 seems underpriced, and I think he's one too that even if he falls some laps down, should be able to have high enough finishing position to pay off his 5,700. Gillian, GPP Jones is almost a fade at his price tag. I think he'll be highly owned because people look at him like, oh, Eric Jones is a good driver. He should be able to get some place differential. He's done good at Bristol. I just don't like the price tag, and I think he falls multiple laps down. Burton, Dillon, McLeod, and Yaley, they're GPP to fade down here. This range is definitely a fade. And even like Cindric and Logano become like GPPs if you think it's going to be a rain race. You're going to draw the line at 20th. You're going to look at maybe Stenhouse, Chastain, and Allmendinger to maybe replace some of the slower drivers that might be above 20, like Priest, Dillon, Hocevar, and LaJoy. But I think, again, if the weather forecast looks like, hey, you know what, we're going to be able to make it through this race, there's not going to be any issues, then I still don't think these guys are in play unless you're playing deep GPPs. I think it's almost the fade level here. I don't think I'd play anybody below Cindric, even if I think the weather's fine. But I, just want to make sure that you know what you're looking at. But if you're swinging for the fences and you're going with a Bell, Hamlin, trying to get Larson in your lineup, and you need some of these guys, then again, I think Cindric's the best out of all of them. Gillian would probably be second, and then I just don't know. Burton always finds trouble. Dillon, McLeod, Yaley, they could be 4, 5, 6 laps down in a blink of an eye. I mean, I'd probably go up to like Justin Haley, who's starting 19th and kind of in the same price range. He's just like maybe $1,000 more. So, and we already talked about Larson. Definitely probably going to be the highest owned. So, sorry, this is kind of all over the place, and sorry I didn't realize that there was a cutoff race. So, but hopefully that gives you good information. And like I said, you really draw the line at 20th there and play from Boucheron up. If the weather is going to look bad, if it's not, then I think you can draw the line down at 29th and play up from there with keeping in mind Cindric, Logano, Chastain, Stenhouse, and Allmendinger as some solid cash fill in place. And again, you just have to decide what you're gonna do on Logano or Larson. It's 11-5. Like a lot of people are gonna play him. It might need to be like a chalk that you eat just to take him for the block, but it might be a case where like we see Kyle Busch at like $14,000 in a truck race or an Xfinity race, where if he doesn't do well and do everything that you expect him to do, then you have so much leverage if he doesn't on the field. So I got, if you have questions, put them in the chat below. Hit me at Ruler31 on Twitter /X, whatever you call it nowadays. And again, if you want more information on FSidfs, is in the description of the video. And stay tuned for NFL video coming up this weekend. I'll try my second one. Was kind of a little funny on mispronouncing the names and things. So I've tried to do a little bit better on that this week. But just like baseball, go ahead and call me out on it. I'll learn it. I'll get better. I promise. So, and if you want to help us more, you've already helped by watching this far into the video. You can like the video, subscribe to our channel, and share with your friends. So thanks for watching. Hope you have a great weekend. Enjoy the race. Hopefully it isn't a train wreck with the weather. And I'll see you next time.